What's going on? What's going on? Glad to be back with you. It's been a few days. Man, agents. Agents everywhere. What are we going to do? Agents. What's going on with the mail? Your mail been late? Haven't got your mail? It seems to be a problem these days. Don't know what's causing it, but hey, the mail ain't coming. Karl Malone must be mad. In the cotton candy cult, we're going to open up with that here in just a moment. Welcome back. You're live with DJ Frosty Freeze, episode 10. Let's get it.
I am DJ
Frosty Freeze. Let the attack begin.
The crowd favorite, DJ Frosty Freeze, is in the building.
What's going on? Well, it's been a few days. I had to take some time off, reset, get some equipment straight. Had some other things that I had to get done, had to do. Appreciate you all for stopping in. Be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, comment, do all that good things. Because what that does is that actually brings it to other people so that they can see it and share it as well. So we're going to get into it today, but first I want to address a couple things. Talking about my lovely fans and followers and trolls alike. We must be doing something right. We must be doing something right. And I find it interesting that every single election cycle, we run into this thing where folks just start coming out the woodwork. They're loud, they're screaming, they're hollering, they're doing all kinds of crazy things. They're going out of their minds, especially when their particular candidate is trailing and losing, and they start to come to a reckoning and a realization that their candidate didn't provide and didn't follow through with the things they said they would, and all they're left with is identifying with that person, that self-reflection, and they see the failures, and so they start attacking everything and everybody that gets in the way of that, because they see the light at the end of the tunnel disappearing slowly. But we're talking about agents now. We're opening up today with agents, and we're going to talk a little bit about the DNC that kicked off. I have some feelings about that I'm going to share. Some things that I'm not particularly happy about, but some things that I am happy about. I think Michelle Obama, First Lady, knocked it out of the park yesterday, just took them straight out the frame. Rammed it right there. And all I can say is to those folks out there that are screaming and hollering and mad about the last administration, they can't deal with what it is, and what it is what it is. And she knocked it out of the park. Tonight, AOC's about to blast it out of there too. She gets to give her speech, and we're gonna pull her up today too when we get into this post office segment. Yeah, they're messing with the mail. They're tampering with the mail, and I think that well, it's something personal for me too. You know, I'm gonna give a little bit of my personal experiences with the mail and stuff and how that works. But big shout out to our mail carriers. I've known many of them over the years, and many of them are in my family. Many of them have retired from there that were in my family. Many of my friends still work there. I've always had good relationships with our mail carriers. I still do. I talk to them every day when they come by the house, and I encourage them and let them know that, you know, we're on their side, and you can do the same thing. They may not want to tell you their names for fear of some type of retaliation or something like that, but it's good to engage them with conversation. Just let them know that you have their back. Because, see, the stuff that's going on right now and the way it's changing, it's affecting them personally, and you're going to start to see that reflection here shortly with the way things happen. Because it didn't just affect Democrats as they assumed it would, and it's affecting a lot of old retired Republicans as well. Be sure to hit that like, subscribe on all the Facebook and YouTube channels. Mixcloud as well. Also get in on the Cash App. Last week we had a $31 donation. I appreciate that. That gives us another 2 months worth of airtime here and bringing you some of this content. I also got the website up and running. I put that in the description. But let's get into it. So, was Manafort a Russian agent? Was he mistaken? I don't know. According to a 949-page Intelligence Commission report today, it basically says that the Russians were directly involved in getting Trump elected, which we already knew. The Mueller report kind of laid that out for us. This just reinforces that. And I find it convenient that the Intelligence Committee, the Republican-controlled Intelligence Committee in the Senate, happens to bring this out in the last 4 months before the election. That's interesting to me because there ain't much they can do about it now. I wonder where all this was back in January during impeachment hearings and so forth. And of course, they got the DNI out right away and threw in Ratcliffe, which is a joke. It directly involved Trump. This report is talking about Russian intelligence officers with Paul Manafort. It was like an old clandestine operation going on. This report is damaging from what I've read so far, and I encourage you to read it. I left a link in the description. Go ahead and click the description to read the whole report yourself. But this thing is horrible. This thing's got Trump on it. It's got Trump's family on it. It's got everybody in it. And it directly involved Trump, and from the Mueller report, his family as well, Don Jr. and all them. You know, you remember that meeting that they had in Trump Tower and stuff like that? Yeah, that's all in there. And, of course, the whole Steele dossier that they wanted to discredit so bad. Now we know why they were trying so hard to throw that thing aside and to discredit it. And I'm not saying that thing is 100%. Who knows if it is or not. I'm sure we won't know for another 20 or 30 years or something. But apparently there's some merit to that because it's mentioned in this Senate Intelligence Investigative Declassified Review and Report. And I want to remind you that this is Republican controlled here. This report, this Ratcliffe guy was appointed especially by Trump to get in here and deal with this stuff. And I think the way he dealt with it was just holding on to it for a little extra time. I'm going to read a little bit of it for you today, but before I do that, I'll finish here. Trump is doing everything now to continue this thing in 2020, and so is Putin. And they're doing it a little differently, and you're wondering why they're freaking out and why they're going after the mail and all this kind of thing, because you see, without electronics, Putin is they have to find another way. It's not going according to plan. And they're trying everything they can now to discredit the plan for Trump's reelection. And if you think Trump doesn't and company isn't doing this without full knowledge of what's going on and what's taking place, you've been poisoned by that gaseous light that's been coming out. Now think back to all the sweet talking and deflection away from Russia and all the, oh, Russia, if you can hear me, and oh, I wouldn't see why Russia would be involved and all that kind of stuff. You remember all that when all that was going on? And the whole WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks, as he's hugging the flag and all this kind of stuff, right? All of that's in the report. Excuse me. It's all there. He was so excited. Trump was so excited by what was happening in his campaign that he couldn't help himself. And if you haven't been paying attention when Trump goes off like this, He's simply telling you the truth. When he starts freaking out about things and he starts blurting about how happy he is, that's when he's telling the truth. When he's happy, he's telling the truth. When he's arguing, it's a deflection. It's into something else. Big shout out to the trolls. Seriously, big shout out to the trolls. They gave me a lot today. We're going in. And the trolls repeat everything he says. It's amazing to me. And when we get into this segment about the U.S. Postal Service, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, the Trump Tower Moscow, all this stuff is in there. I'm just amazed at some of the snippets I'm looking at here, with this thing. It's crazy. And I think it bothers me more that they knew this, everybody knew this, and they decided to wait on it. They waited on it till the 11th hour when it would have mattered the most. When they could have impeached him over all this stuff, the evidence, they had the evidence. And you remember they were hiding behind classified. Everything was classified. We can't talk about it. Democrat and Republican. Didn't matter who they were. When they got up in front of the screen, it was my biggest pet peeve. Everything was classified, they said. We can't talk about it publicly right now. It's all classified. And in the report, there are redactions, but nothing of any significance. And so Trump is doing now what he did then, back in 2016. He's following the same playbook. He's going after us. He's going after every possible way that he can, because we've thwarted the attempts now through electronic number manipulations and other true voter fraud that can be proven and has been proven. You can't hide from this. This is here. It's here for everybody to see. And again, these are all Trump Republicans that are in this thing. Ratcliffe had to sign off on this. He had to review this thing. Back in May of 15th, they had a committee. Richard Burr was the Republican from North Carolina, the chairman of the committee. And Vice Chairman Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia, released the following statement. This was back in May 15th of 2020 here, just this year, a couple months ago. The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence has submitted the fifth and final volume of its bipartisan investigative report into Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. election to the Office of Director of National Intelligence, which is, by the way, Ratcliffe, for classification review. In addition to submitting the full classified report, and in order to help facilitate the intelligence community's review, we have also submitted what we assess to be a properly redacted, unclassified version of the report, totaling nearly 1,000 pages. It's actually 949, but that's neither here nor there. It is our hope that the ODNI can expeditiously review these documents so that the committee can consider, vote on, and release the report as soon as possible. So as soon as possible is now 4 months later. 3 months, 4 months, almost 4 months, approximately. That's 3 months. So 90 days. They gave him 90 days. Maybe that was in the committee. I'm not sure. And they quote, "We want to thank the talented and tireless staff who have contributed to the committee's investigation. The work they've done has already greatly added to our understanding of and response to foreign threats to our democratic process." As if they didn't know this back in 2016 when the investigations originally started, and of course during the time that Mueller was actually investigating this thing for impeachment. They knew all this stuff. They waited. The background on this: at a May 5th open hearing for the nomination of Director of National Intelligence, Chairman Burr announced that the committee's fifth report was complete and would be sent for declassification. During questioning, nominee Rep. John Ratcliffe affirmed his commitment as DNI to an expeditious review of the committee's report. And he had just become DNI, and it was because of this report that Trump had made sure that John Ratcliffe got in there as the DNI. And if you don't know who John Ratcliffe was, he was another one of those guys that was like the the guy from the gym. Oh, Jim Jordan, that guy. Yeah, he's one of those guys. He was one of those guys on the committees in the House that was out there screaming at the top of his lungs for Donald Trump and trying everything he could, and he just couldn't hack it there. He wasn't performing well enough for Trump, so they stuck him in Trump stuck him in the DNI and got him out of the House committees, and so here he is. But he released this, and this is the fifth and final volume, they say. So let's look at what's going on here. As I look at this, I can see where they went down a list of it, and they give you a quick summary. But I'll read a little bit here about what they got on Paul Manafort. You know, the guy that they had to release from prison because of COVID. At the same time that they want everybody to go back to work and send their kids to school and stuff like this, you know. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So Paul Manafort's connections to Russia and Ukraine began in approximately late 2004 with the start of his work for Oleg Deripaska and other Russian-aligned oligarchs in Ukraine. The committee found that Deripaska conducts influence operations frequently in countries where he has a significant economic interest. The Russian government coordinated with directs, which directs, it must have been a typo here, directs Deripaska on many of his influence operations. From approximately 2004 to 2009, Manafort implemented these influence operations on behalf of Deripaska, including a board multi-million-dollar political influence campaign directed at numerous countries of interest to Deripaska and the Russian government. Pro-Russian Ukrainian oligarchs with deep economic ties to Russia also paid Manafort tens of millions of dollars and forged strong ties with Manafort independent of Deripaska. Understand, these people are directly under the influence and under the command of Vladimir Putin. These are all intelligence people. We get into the intelligence part of it here. They're going to be talking about Konstantin Kilimnik, Russian intelligence. Manafort hired and worked increasingly closely with the Russian national Konstantin Kilimnik. Kilimnik is a Russian intelligence officer. Kilimnik became an integral part of Manafort's operations in Ukraine and Russia, serving as Manafort's primary liaison to Deripaska, and eventually managing Manafort's office in Kiev. Kilimnik and Manafort formed a close and lasting relationship that endured to the 2016 U.S. elections and I repeat, and beyond. So even after the election, they wanted to continue their operation, and that got thwarted by Robert Mueller. And of course, the Democratic House members and Senate members. And this I'm going to tell you straight up, this report vindicates all those FBI agents, all those folks that were tirelessly investigating this thing. It started almost a decade ago, 15, 16 years ago, and it lasted until after the 2016 election. Click the link, read it for yourself. It's all there. It goes into the hacks and the leaks. That was their biggest mode of operation in Russia, was using computer systems to hack the systems of the voting machines. And I know a lot of you have forgotten about this, but they were able to infiltrate many of the voting machines, supposedly just as a test, as they said. Why would they do all that? Why would they go to the trouble of being caught messing around with U.S. election voting machines just to do a test? So the committee found that their biggest mode of operation was using the voting machines. The Trump Tower meeting is listed in this committee report. Trump Tower Moscow's in this report. George Papadopoulos is in the report. They talk about him. They talk about Carter Page, which everybody wanted to get him off the radar right away. And WikiLeaks, of course, was involved big time. I just talked about Maria Butina and Alexander Torshin on one of my Facebook posts recently. About people forgetting with the whole NRA and the influence and how they were passing money through the NRA and laundering it through other means. All that's in there. So some of us aren't as foolish as you think. And, it brings me back to some of the things I would always tell people. You never know who you're talking to. what resources they have, and who they know. So conduct yourself accordingly when it comes to that. And of course, they investigated the executive branch all the way through, not just Trump himself, but all the other stuff that went along, that goes along with that office. And that brings me to the part where Russia is struggling and Trump is having issues, because we get into the post office of this thing and how that has affected the United States and what the ultimate goal of that is. Which, if you were born yesterday, you might be clueless as to what's happening right now. But since you're not, and most of us have some sense of intelligence, we know exactly what the post office situation is, and we know why. And I'm going to say this again, and I brought it up on an earlier podcast, which you can see on YouTube. Go to my YouTube channel, Freeze Frame Radio, and you will find it there. I talked about it. And the reason why this is a monkey wrench, if you will, in Trump's operation is that even though this is an old school way of voting, it isn't so much the voting by mail that is the problem. It's the fact that any mail that comes from a foreign entity, like let's say they were able to get a bunch of ballots, a bunch of ballots out in Russia, China, Iran, Iraq, anywhere, Mongolia, doesn't matter. Let's say they get a bunch of our ballots and they decide they want to mail them in. Well, those are going to be heavily scrutinized, more so than the local mail-in ballots. Because every overseas ballot, especially those that come from service members, is vetted. It's checked multiple times before it even comes into the States. And that brings me to that part of it too, where the mail being vetted is a security issue on top of all that we already know. And we're not talking about that. The mainstream media isn't talking about the security risk with mail-in ballots as well, or even or the mail in general. Think about that time back in 9/11. Right after 9/11, there was a string of mail coming with powder substances and anthrax outbreaks. And if you remember the anthrax outbreaks, these things were getting mailed to politicians' house, and they were finding powder substances and things like that. Now, what happens if somebody decides to put some material in the U.S. mail and it gets circulated, or it sits in some warehouse somewhere and it spreads with all the other mail instead of going through quickly and getting checked out and getting manned and screened? Now, we could potentially have something sitting in the mail for weeks on end without anybody knowing. And that brings me into this whole thing, with medications and stuff, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. But there's just a lot going on with this postal thing that's nasty. And this goes back to even today. I'm getting trolled. I'm getting trolled like crazy right now from folks that are trying to justify this whole mail thing. And I do find it interesting that it's $1 a day late and $1 short, but they're out here trolling anyway. And it's comical because every single one of them that does it to me sounds exactly the same. And they don't know each other. I know this for a fact. They don't know each other, but they all sound the same. So the talking points get to them. And it's interesting that folks cannot think for themselves. And that leads and that goes back to my lead in today with folks that just jump along, get on the bandwagon just because, for whatever reason. But now you got the cult out here trying to desperately to sheepishly make excuses for the Trump endorsed dismantling. Yes, I said it. The Trump endorsed dismantling of the United States Post Office in the 11th hour of an election year, as if it wasn't obvious. And I got these guys hitting my social media with this stuff. I mean, weeks after I sounded the bell. I'm telling you, it was weeks after I said, hey, this post office thing is not good. Like they're trying to do something. The fact that they changed the post office with some clown that has no experience in the post office whatsoever was suspect from the very start. So I got these guys hitting my social media with this stuff. And guess what? Your Trump-induced stupor and blind obedience to that cotton candy dreamsicle has you repeatedly using the same deflections. And it's obvious. It's so obvious, in fact, that you all repeat the same thing verbatim. Like, I'm serious. You guys are literally saying the same thing. The same exact sentences, word for word. Well, previous administrations, this, that, and the third. You know, I hear it all the time. It's a joke. And I'm not kidding here when I say I'm not. I'm really not kidding here. It's the truth. It's the same damn thing every time. Well, the post office has been having problems since the Clinton administration. You know, I heard that one. Or since W. Bush administration. Heard that one too today. It's hilarious. It's as if Trump can't do anything with outside of something that happened in the past. Like he's too stupid or something to figure out what's going on in the future. He can't fix it. Okay, so it was so bad before, but Trump has no idea how to fix it now. And then when he does try to fix it, it just so happens to be at the 11th hour of election year when he actually needs that because Russia can't help him through the computer process and Russia can't hack into paper ballots. So now we got to disrupt the voting system through the mail. But then he forgets about all the people that have to get other things through the mail. And we'll talk about that shortly. Now you're all worn and tired. This is I'm telling you, man, this is such a worn out and lazy ass tired playbook. It's worn out. You guys have worn this playbook out. It's ridiculous at this point. And this is what Trump does. So it doesn't surprise me to see everybody parroting this thing. This is what Trump does. And these guys are so proud to think this stuff is working. They really do. They think this stuff, they're getting away with this. But I'm telling you, I don't let them get away with it. I'll put it up there. I'll take them to every piece of information I got, and not one of these guys they'll condemn me all day long, and they'll throw me. You know, I'm the radio guy. I'm the guy that comes out there, puts the information out there for them, but I'm the guy that it's my narrative all of a sudden. You know, I put the information. They don't dispute the information, but they call me all kinds of this and all kinds of that, and you know, I got Trump derangement syndrome or something. Well, if I got that, they definitely got the Trump cult syndrome, the dreamsicle syndrome, the cotton candy cult. They got something going on. But this is what Trump does, and these guys are so proud of this stuff, and they think it works. And they just seriously, you need to cut the foolishness at this point. I know some of you have had a brain. You know, I know some of you personally too. I know you have a brain. That's why I still talk to you half the time. Because I know where you guys came from. Something happened. Something happened in 2016. That aside, from my inner circle, I talk to people that work, like I said in the lead-in. I talk to people that work in the post office quite regularly. I know people that work in the post office. And I've seen it shift over the years into more of they become more willing to hire minority groups, which is great to see. And you almost have to question that. I've seen more black and Latinx and other people of color that are delivering the mail more than I've ever seen in my life. And now all of a sudden we're deciding we need to make cuts. And I hear them, and I talk to them, and I engage with them. But you know what I didn't get is I didn't hear from any of you guys that were out there continuously. You know, when the post office was continuously increasing the rates on the stamps and the postage and the priority mail shipping, I didn't hear any of you guys then. When those rates were increasing, you guys had nothing to say about the post office. Where were all these Trump people then? They weren't saying nothing about it then. I was. I said, hey, you know, there's something going on here. You know, the post office, why the hell didn't you guys think to adjust, why didn't you guys think about that? When why the hell didn't you think they had to adjust their rates? Why do you think they needed to do that? The post office isn't a taxpayer-funded entity. It isn't. They survive on volume. And that's parcels and mail and stuff that goes out. And that was hindered when Amazon came around and the computer age started to shift. And we started to see, the UPS and Federal Express and all that stuff started getting cheaper rates. But you know how they did that? They did that by volume. They were able to increase volume. And then, of course, provide a cheaper rate and a more reliable service at the time, which I don't even know if that's true. I think the post office has always been reliable. Rain, shine, sleet, snow. The only thing that kept them guys from coming around was a damn hurricane. They're not taxpayer funded. That's something that people need to understand. They're a government contracted, constitutionally regulated operation, but they're not taxpayer funded. And and there are things I agree with. There's things that need to be fixed in the post office. Namely, we need to figure out a way. I think Congress needs to figure out a way to get these guys a real pension. I think that the pension they need to get that figured out. I know from personal family members that they had to work like part-time jobs and things like that, particularly in retirement, so that they could get some kind of Social Security. Because you see, if taxpayers aren't paying into, if they're not receiving taxpayer funds or governmental funds that way as other federal jobs, they won't get that Social Security benefit when they retire. So they do have to self-provide for their pensions. And I've always had an issue with that. And to that, I will concede. There is a problem there with that. But you need to understand that Congress also controls the purse for the post office. And Congress is the one that needs to do something. And this is where it gets funny with the arguments and how hypocritical this stuff gets. Congress had to put money up to keep them running. All right? To stop any cuts or need for them. And you want to come, and you guys want to come here and say Trump is trying to fix this problem. And that's where it gets me. Like, Congress is putting up the money for this thing so that these guys can run at normal capacity and even more capacity if they can. And understand, the post office was already putting in overtime. So they were doing it, but they were putting in overtime to get it done. Congress decides they want to give them so many odd, billions or millions of dollars. And all of a sudden we want to start making cuts now. And then when does this end? Does this stop? Because even if Trump gets voted out, he doesn't leave office until January. So what happens during the holiday season? They get billions of parcels and pieces of mail through December in the holiday season, and they don't seem to have a problem with that. But now all of a sudden it's going to be a problem, right? Come on. None of us were born yesterday. Use some common sense here, if there is a such thing anymore. You know better than this. It's a joke. And to blindly follow this crap is just amazing to me. So Congress decides, Democrats have been, and Democrats, they put up they had a bill, and let's understand this real quick, because I don't want people to get the wrong idea here. I don't necessarily agree with everything that Democrats put up. I'm not some crazy liberal, regardless of what you may think. It just so happens to be I'm not a Trump supporter. And that doesn't mean I won't talk to you. So let's get that out of the way. Also, I would add, to that is that I don't agree with everything that Democrats do. Never have, never, and probably never will. Anybody in their right mind, of course, it's hard to tell nowadays on the other side, but I was for a long time, I was more, believe me, I've been there. I sat on that conservative table for a long time. I get it. There's things that I'm still very conservative about, and maybe sometime we'll talk about that in a broadcast. But this one's running long, and I could go on for 4 hours talking about all the issues today, but I'm trying to move this along because I know you guys don't have the damn capacity to sit here with me. But let's go. They put money into this, and when they make these bills, they make them in such a way, and this is a classic negotiating tactic, is you bloviate the negotiation by throwing in all kinds of excess and trying to negotiate, give yourself leverage, so that way you can come down a bit. And if you remember Mnuchin and Mark Meadows, when they were first negotiating, They got to an agreement. They actually got to an agreement. Democrats put up a lot of stuff, and some of it that I thought didn't need to be in there, and they brought it down. They said, we'll take it down $1 trillion or something like this. Bring it to the middle, and they all seem to agree. Now this was back in July. Then all of a sudden that didn't work because, well, there was something in there for the mail. And of course, we know that election time is coming up. And because of COVID-19, for people's safety, we want people to mail in their ballots. We want people to be safe. We want them to enjoy what happens after the election, right? So when that happened, and when people started barking in the ears of Trump, he said, oh, no. We can't put money in there for the post office. No way. We need to revamp that. The post office needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed now. Not 2.5 years ago. It needs to be fixed now. Because it's important to him right now, you see. So that's what he does. And so now we're in this quandary where the Senate gets stalled after originally coming to somewhat of an agreement with the White House, which is stupid on its face. I've never known Republicans or conservatives to ever want to concede power to anything, and I've seen the weakest, ridiculous capitulation that I've ever seen in my life with this Republican group here. They actually gave their power away. Like it was just, okay, we had it for so long now, we enjoyed it, but yeah, we'll give it to this guy. Who isn't even in their club, by the way. Trump wasn't even in there. He still isn't in their club. But he was able to talk loud enough. Anyway, they put all this stuff in these bills, and they use it for negotiating tactics, which is, it's normal. It happens. I get it. You expect to lose something, but there are certain principled things in those bills that can't be lost, and I think that both sides need a little bit of something in there. But messing around with the post office that is really, on its face, it's apolitical. We all need the mail. It doesn't matter if you're Republican, Libertarian, Democratic, Socialist, whatever you are. We all use the mail. We all need the mail. And that's where it comes to, it comes to some serious stuff here. Because we overlook things, and believe me, Trump overlooks a lot. And this is how you know this guy is only concerned with himself. All right? Everything is about him and him only. And you know it because he only thought about balloting. He only thought about mail-in ballots. That's where this whole thing gets skewered and messed up. And I swear there must be a drug-infused orange dreamsicles with cotton candy on top. There must be. Some kind of drugged up dreamsicle with a cotton candy on top. Somebody needs to go check Whole Foods. I bet their popsicle shelves are empty. And their cotton candy racks are gone. Damn flavor of the month or something. I don't know what the hell it is. It's crazy. It's like everybody's falling in line. And they don't know why. And that brings me to this whole thing here. This personal stuff with the balloting. And this not knowing that it's going to affect most of his base, I might add, particularly in Florida. I'm sure somebody got in their ears because they finally, the joy, there ain't no joy in the post office right now. There ain't no joy in the country right now over this thing. People feel attacked by it. It's insane. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I promised you this throughout some podcasts, is I would share a little bit about myself with you. And I think now is part of that time, and I think I'm going to do that, particularly for the replays. I see some folks like this to watch these podcasts on the replay. But one of the things that bothers me with this whole mail-in thing, aside from the balloting, I will find a way. Most of us will find a way to get our votes in there, whether we have to risk life, limb. I have ancestry that risked life, limb, and death to vote. And today is an anniversary, for women's suffrage and the right to vote. as a matter of fact, which, black women had led that cause and had to wait even longer. 1964, 1965. I personally have family that went through that. So I get it and I understand it. And I think it bothers me even more now. Like we'll do whatever we have to do to get our votes and our voices heard. And this whole post office thing has really got me a little bit because apparently it would seem that William Barr couldn't protect these guys because they would have went through with this thing as far as they could if they could have gotten away with it. But they are literally playing with the Constitution and playing around with the U.S. mail by, what is this where I've never seen trucks going out, pulling out mailboxes from street corners as fast as they've been doing now. Now, they've been doing it in the inner city for a long time. They've been making those, they've been taking post offices out of the inner city. Where I lived, they moved 2 of them where I grew up at. They've moved the boxes to where you pretty much have to, drive out of your way and get somebody to drop your mail off for you, your boxes, it's just, it's insane. But here's where it gets to me personally, okay? Back in long time ago, let's just put it that, long time ago. We'll talk about that later, but it's a long time ago. I got something called viral meningitis, and that's where it affects the body, the spinal cord and all that, and it goes to your brain. It can kill you. It can do a lot of things. There's bacterial and viral meningitis. When I was very young, 5 years old to be exact. A couple years later, I developed diabetes. Didn't know it at the time. Technology wasn't up to date, but they assumed that might have been the cause of it, the viral meningitis, that I got diabetes. I'll go into some of this story later, but we'll fast forward this up until what's going on now to make it relevant. Because of diabetes, I became blind in both eyes, had surgeries, restored the eyesight in my right eye, still partially blind in my left eye. I've had every damn complication known to man because of diabetes. I've been a part of all kinds of medical studies to improve the health and well-being of diabetics nation and worldwide through the University of Wisconsin Medical and Children's Hospitals of Wisconsin. And of course, the various hospital organizations here in Wisconsin as well, medical college and all of that stuff. Through all of that and through the journey and through my life, I had encountered so many different things with health. And it made me obsessed from the early days of being 5 and 6 years old. I can remember these things like they were yesterday. And the thing about kids when they get sick, when kids get sick with something, they become obsessed with that sickness. And they become obsessed to the point where they have to know every single thing about it and every single thing that happens to them going forward. That was me. And I'm still like that to this day. My parents were fortunate enough to be able to put me in studies. I was at different studies and helping kids out when I was 8 years old, living in the Detroit area at St. Joseph's Mercy Hospital. And I was blessed enough to have a Philippine doctor who happened to be a research scientist. And this guy was way ahead of his time. He knew things that were going to happen, that didn't happen, that just didn't happen yet. And he was talking about new technologies and how things would happen. Now we fast forward now into my teenage years. I started to get into the various different insulins as they were shifting into new synthetic insulins and trying to make life easier for others that had diabetes and other complications, neuropathy, heart disease, nephrology, all of it, which I've had every episode of all of that stuff. Particularly, we're getting into the part where I've gotten kidney disease. I had to go on dialysis. I had to have special medications. They all had to be mailed to me. I started my mail-in orders years ago. So I understood how this works, and I understand timing, and I understand how to order and what I should expect by this. I've had to have insulin pumps mailed to me. I've had to ship them back. I've had to have equipment shipped and then returned, and I've had to have things happen. And these things have to happen sometimes with an emergent or stat classification. They have to be done immediately. So sometimes I would have to send something in, I'd have to have it within a day or the next day. And if the pharmacies couldn't get it, I'd have to have it shipped within the next day or at the very most 2 days. And we fast forward into what's going on today, and we talk about fixing the USPS, the United States Postal Service. I have no problem with fixing it. Matter of fact, I'm the first one to tell you it probably does need to be fixed. I think that their employees are kind of getting shafted with some of the things that need to be fixed, but they still are out there trucking and getting us our mail on time. And to have some political influence destroy that for personal reasons it's despicable to me. It's damn disgraceful, and it's BS. Now I have to, and I'm thinking about it now because I'm on heart medications, blood pressure stuff, all my transplant medications, which if I don't take, I will die, and they have to be done in a timely fashion. They have to be done at certain times every day, certain periods in the week. I have to make visits regularly, which is completely dangerous during this COVID era. I have no immune system. It's suppressed. And those medications are vital to me, so I can't leave the house. I very rarely leave the house. And when I do, it's only in circumstances that I can control. I can't control the mail, but I expect that the mail will come when it needs to come, and I will get my medications when I need them, because I don't want to have to run out, go into a crowded environment where somebody could have COVID, whether they're masked or not, and they could possibly pass something on to me. And I'll give you a story on how quickly these viruses fly. The very day, I'm a transplant patient. I had a kidney and a pancreas transplant. The very day that I walked out of the hospital after my transplant and on all of my immunosuppression suppressant drugs, medications, I walk out the door, and as I'm walking out this revolving door from the hospital, a lady walks in, and she's coughing as she walks in, and I'm walking past about 4 feet away from her. And I walk out, she's walking in coughing, and I turned my face to the side, and I blocked my mouth and my nose as best I could. And I turned around, I looked at my wife, and I said, "Damn it." I said, "I'm not even out the door," and somebody was hacking. I said, "Watch." A week later, 1 week later, I was in the hospital. They thought I was rejecting my organs. I had caught some kind of virus. Thank God for Tamiflu. And we'll talk about that some other time, because yes, I had the swine flu when I was diabetic pre-transplant, which was a exciting adventure, by the way. But I ended up catching something. I caught something. I ended up in the hospital, almost died. I was in the hospital for 15 days. So I left the hospital after transplant feeling good. Everything's great. Diabetes gone. Eating everything I could possibly think of. Even gained a few pounds. Felt good about myself. And I ended up getting sick. And I knew it. I knew exactly where I got it from. I could trace it back to that very moment. Told the doctors this is what happened. They gave me Tamiflu. They said I caught influenza. And it was gone in a few days. But to understand this, how susceptible folks are to this problem, we don't need other variables creating more problems for us. The mail is a vital lifeline to many people in the United States. I post about it constantly. I post about the need for healthcare constantly. I post about my progressive attitudes towards that constantly. It's important. And to have somebody come in here simply because he wants to hold power, what else would they do? We've already lost over 170,000 people to a virus for incompetence. Now we want to take the post office, which thrives on volume, by the way. They need volume because they aren't funded. They're not funded by taxpayer dollars. So they're run like any other business. They have to increase prices. They have to keep production going. They need more mail and not less. So it makes absolutely no sense for somebody to say, well, we need to refix the post office by taking away all the equipment, taking away overtime, taking away all the mail that's coming in. What do you think people are gonna do? I'm serious here. What do you think people are gonna do if they're not getting their mail on time? They're gonna go to private couriers, or they're gonna send this stuff through Amazon, or they're gonna send it through UPS or FedEx or Speedy Delivery or any number, of DSL or any number of companies that are privately owned that will get you your stuff. And then you'll see the price change. You'll see the shifting capitalist mindset take over. Now understand something. This whole post office thing has always been a bug up Trump's ass for a long time. And it's not even because of the post office itself. It's because of his jealousy towards Bezos and other people in that private sector that happen to own more and are more rich and everything else better than Trump. That's all this was about. And Bezos buys the Washington Post, and they start putting out articles that Trump doesn't like, and Trump, says, well, he goes after the post office because that's the only thing he has somewhat of a control over, and he says, well, I'm gonna start messing with the post. The post office needs to stop working with these people, and they understand the post office wants to work with as many people as they can because that's how they get paid. It's not a personal thing for the post office, at least. This is a completely Trump construct. And it's not coincidental that it happens in the 11th hour of an election year. I need my medicine. I know a lot of my veteran friends need their medicine. You should visit those folks sometimes. They'll tell you what they really think. And many of them I don't agree with politically, but we still talk and we get our things out. And there's a lot of things we do agree with. But believe me, folks, when I tell you, I talk to these people. I see them. I was one of them. My parents, both from the South, conservative stepfather, by a bio dad, from Louisiana. Mom, born in Kentucky, raised in Tennessee. That's all you need to know. So stop coming at me with the labels and stop coming at me with the nonsense. I've been there, know all about it, been through it. This isn't my first hurrah go around through this stuff. I know some of you are new to this because you got your popularity contest going with Trump. But I've been doing this a lot longer than Trump was even thought of in this crap. And he played you guys all. Played you all. And continues to do it. And that's all I got for you tonight, folks. Be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, get on my YouTube page, and don't forget to hit that donate button. Hit the Cash App. That is at Darth Freeze, at Freeze Frame Radio on Twitter, and all your other social media accounts. Be sure to hit all that. Be sure to comment. Let me know what's going on. We don't have to agree, but we can definitely talk. I don't mind that. Enjoy the DNC. Oh, yeah. As I said in the beginning, I guess I should address that before I jump out of here real quick. Here's the problem I got with the DNC. It should have been in Milwaukee. These guys could have took a week off. They could have cordoned off a couple floors at a hotel. They could have socially distanced, and they could have did all the digitals. The same stuff they're doing now, they could have did here in Milwaukee. They didn't have to, Biden didn't have to hide out in Delaware. They didn't have to do all that. They could have came here and did it anyway because this was something that Hillary did. She made a choice to abandon Wisconsin and not visit Wisconsin and some other places. And I'm telling you, folks, this pisses people off. It bothers me. And I'm the first one to tell you that. It's garbage. They could have did something here and not just send their local delegates to the DNC here. But anyway, I appreciate you for stopping in. Thank you for stopping by. I am DJ Frosty Freeze. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Your girlfriend's favorite DJ, DJ Frosty Freeze.